It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Miriam Factor and Yaakov Baruch, who's come specially from Indonesia, and we in Beit Bart. And Miriam, thank you so much. And Miriam, I brought somebody who's the only religious practicing Jew in Indonesia.
Yes.
And Yaakov, if you can just tell a little bit about your background.
Shalom.
Okay.
My name is Yaakov Baruch. So the story starts beginning during the colonial time, when the family of my grandmother came to Indonesia.
They came from where?
They're from Schravenhagen or Den Haag.
Schravenhagen, yeah.
And then my grandma married an Indonesian guy, and then came my mother. My mother married another Indonesian guy and came myself. So I was raised in the culture family, Indonesian and Dutch. And from beginning I didn't know anything about my Jewish background until when I was in the high school. Suddenly my grandma told me that during the argument, how Dutch people to talk, like what. And then my grandmother told that she was Jewish all the time, and I was very shocked and surprised. I said, no, you are Dutch, how come you said you were a Jew? So she went to her house, her bedroom. She took some document, and finally I recognized it's a birth certificate from grandfather, and that she showed it to me that it is said because of Shabbat is not signing, or in the Dutch it said omdat Shabbat is niet geteken. So I said, what's the meaning is not signing because of Shabbat? What
is Shabbat?
Yeah, I know Shabbat, but why people not signing Shabbat? And then my grandmother started to talk that it's a religious Jews, you're not allowed to writing on Shabbat, everything, and step by step it's like make me like curious, like make me very interesting, and then I start to tell her, would you teach me about this our heritage?
Your grandmother or your mother?
My grandmother.
You asked your grandmother.
So my mother not practicing at all. Once my grandmother told me, I went to her brother, her old brother, I call it Opaleo, and then I asked him what if my grandmother told is true, and then he said yes. And then he told me he even was live in Israel before for a few years, but he cannot stay there, he come back to Indonesia. And he showed it to me first, my first kippah. And he showed me Talit, and he teach me a Hebrew song like Hava Nagila. He said my father liked to sing in this song. Everything is something new for me, So I remember my grandma told me, I want you to collect the rest of the Jews in town that I know, the friend of my parents. You go to family Bollegraaf, you go to family Ezekiel, Rosenberg, whatever. She said I didn't sound familiar, at the time. But after I went to the house, I talked to them, and then we decided we will build a synagogue for the first time. Not for the first time, for the first time in our generation. So that's all the story begin. In 2001, I started to build a synagogue in some place. But
you started building a synagogue,
yeah.
Or you went for the first time to the synagogue?
For the first time, I rent a room and I used it as a synagogue. But in 2004, for the first time, we have a permanent synagogue. Yeah.
1 second, I think the air conditioner went off. Now, why did it go off? 1 second,
Yeah.
can I?
Okay. Since 2004, after I have a synagogue, I contact all people to come from we have Iraqi, Dutch, Jewish family in my hometown. And then I flew to Singapore, I studied to a rabbi there. And in 2009 I come to Israel, and then I go to America after that. And I decided to start to re-establish the Jewish community again. I go to all my grandmother friends who live in Jakarta. We still have a Jews 80 years old, 90 years old. They passed the terrible experience in the Japanese camp. So they start the story, and I tell my grandmother, why you never told me about this from the beginning? And she said that my parents forbid me to say anything because we lost family in Europe and we lost family in here in Japanese camp.
Yeah.
So I when I was in Israel, I come to Yad Vashem, I try to find information about my grandmother's family died in the Holocaust, and in 2018 or 19, I decided to make a Holocaust memorial. Just a stone, to memorize my family and the 6 million Jews. But in 2001 came something idea in my mind. I need to make a Holocaust museum. I need to educate all the Indonesian about Holocaust. They didn't know about Auschwitz, Sobibor.
What does your wife say about this?
Well, my wife, she's Indonesian.
Yes.
So of course, like other Indonesians, she's afraid that I go too far because Indonesia is the biggest Muslim population country that very anti-Israel, anti-Jews.
Yes.
But I told my wife and my family that because of that I want to build the Holocaust Museum, because I want to fight anti-Semitism in this country. And as a lecturer in the university, I need to educate people. So that's the idea when I start to build the Holocaust Museum.
And what do your children say?
My children is very proud of Jewish children. They went with the kippah to the school.
How are the Jewish children?
Yeah, I teach them Judaism at home because nobody teaches Judaism in the school.
They converted?
Yeah, my wife and my kids.
They converted?
They're doing Gior, yeah. So after that, Besrat Hashem, on this December, I will take my son to have Bar Mitzvah in the Kotel.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think that's a short story about me. I want to listen your story.
Wow. And, wow. Can I make you a drink? You want a cold drink?
Okay, sure.
Mr. Glassman.
I saw in a newspaper about there is an international philately exhibition in Indonesia that was attended by an Israeli delegation. That Israeli man have a very good experience during the exhibition in Jakarta. It's a Muslim country or population. So everything about Israel in newspaper always make me curious. So I tried to find in Facebook, and then I found it in Facebook. I sending friend request, and then I said, are you the one who came to Jakarta? Yes. And then I said, I have planned to go to Israel. If possible, probably we can meet. I think that's in 2011, if I'm not wrong. So, something like that. And then
that's 30
I think you asked for etrog, and we sent in the post the etrog.
Yeah.
And it came straight after Sukkot.
Wow.
Yeah. Before we met, I said because Mr. Glassman said, what do you need? We can do. And then on the time I remember Arba Minim. So I start with etrog. I said if possible, and then he gave the etrog to my friend pilgrimage to Indonesia, and then she took the etrog from Mr. Glassman to me to Indonesia.
Tell me, how do the neighbors take it that suddenly there is a Jewish family living next to them? Because they're all Muslim, most of them.
The good things is I live in the most population Christian area in my hometown. That's why.
Christian.
Yeah,
not that the Christians are so wonderful, but okay.
Yeah, but I mean they very respect what I'm doing. They're very pro-Israel, and I don't have a Muslim neighbor actually. All my neighbors are Christian, and in the synagogue neighbor also many Christian. But what I visit is the Muslim in other island, especially in Jakarta or in the other biggest town in Indonesia. That's what, like when I opened the Holocaust Museum, there is a huge resistance from the Muslims. The Muslim party, the Ulama Council, the Muslim cleric, all said that
it never happened.
They must be destroy the museum. Holocaust is hoax. There is no justification to build in Indonesia who very pro-Palestine. Only people in my hometown stand with the museum.
How far away are you from Jakarta?
3 hours by flight.
3 hours
Yeah.
to fly?
It's in another island, so
Yeah.
it's quite safe.
And if you could show the picture, Yaakov met with the from Yad Vashem on this trip,
Mr. Richard, yeah.
and you donated from the museum.
So when I start to build the museum in 2022, it's a
You want me to turn it?
it's
On
a
what you took that.
it's exactly on the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. So the inauguration is January 27. I opened I invited the German ambassador, Austrian ambassador. They came. The Indonesian government also came. But for the first exhibition, I used a poster from Yad Vashem. So I got all the poster material from Mrs. Fischel Booth Kaplan. She's the one who sent all the poster to me, and it was covered by the Israeli newspaper, online newspaper, Yavnet, if I'm not wrong.
Ynet, perhaps.
Yeah, Ynet. It becomes very noisy in whole Indonesia. Like there is Israeli exhibition in Indonesia, and people are like very against it. But I don't care. This is this is the pay that I need to do it. That to educate people. I know I fight the biggest anti-Semitism country in the world. It's called it Indonesia. I need to fight them to show it to them about it's nothing to do with what they're afraid, like there's a propaganda from Israel, they said, or something. I said Holocaust is happened far before the Israel was born. It's nothing to do with the politics. I just want to memorize my grandmother family, more than 40 people in Auschwitz and Sobibor, both.
Yeah. You had a choice, you see. My mother had just,
Yeah.
derech hagav, between brackets. My mother had the choice. We could go either to Auschwitz or to Sobibor. Nice choice, right? That I asked my mother. She looked at him and he said, "We're not going anywhere." Not realizing, of course, but I don't know if she knew then, that instead of the 5 of us, my father, my mother, my 2 brothers and me, I was a baby, sorry that I interrupt you, that instead of us, another 5 Jews had to go on the train. Because, the train needed that many people, so whatever. But, yeah.
Actually, I want to listen your story because there's a...
But Les made a film, so you should watch that.
Yeah. I have my own question, if you don't mind.
No, ask.
I know there is a big issue about after the Holocaust among the survivors about faith or emunah. What make you still become a fromm after the Holocaust?
Look, my mother, when they came back in 46. Only in 46, in March 46. The end of March 46, my parents came back, and my mother didn't want to know anything about Jews, about Yahadut. She didn't want to have anything to do with it. We knew we were Jews, but that's where it ended.
Yeah.
She did all kinds of funny things. I don't know if I told it on the film. I mean, she would put a non-kosher meat, she would put it in water, she would put it in salt and then in water, if you have to kosher the meat. And she would wash the salad, the lettuce, she would put it in vinegar water so that the insects will come out. But she didn't want to have anything to do with it. And slowly. And I always asked my father. My father took me once to, there was a party from Chabad, I think it was from Chabad there. Why he only took me and not my brothers, I don't remember that. Because I was really very, very little. And I started asking questions. There was a story from the Briata Olam then. That was the story that they did. And my father told me, and I was always interested. I always asked. And I would go to my father and ask, because my mother said, no, she didn't want anything to do with it. She came back afterwards when she was older. When I was 11, I jumped a little bit, but when I was 11, I was never allowed to go out on the street by myself. I always needed Either my brothers would take me wherever I wanted to go to, if it was to a friend or if it was to, I went to ballet lessons, they always had to take, and they had to wait outside and take me back home. I was never allowed to walk anywhere by myself. Or my father would take me, or my mother would take me, and they would wait outside. We had, what was there? I asked, it was on a Shabbat morning. And I remember it was nice, but it wasn't raining. That means Holland it always rains.
Yeah.
It wasn't raining. And I asked my father if I could go out. Where are you going to? He said, I want to go. There were shops on the road. I had to go around, get out of the street, make a right turn, walk on, make a left turn. And there were the shops. And I wanted to look at the shops as an 11-year-old girl. He said, you're not crossing the roads. I am not crossing the road. You're not crossing the road. Tell me that you're not crossing the road. I said, I'm not going to cross the road. I'm standing in front of the traffic lights and I want to cross the road. I'm 11, right?
Yes.
I want to cross the road. Stands in front of me a religious Jew, and he's holding his son by the hand. His hand, the boy was perhaps 6. Perhaps he was 5, 6 years old. And the father is telling him, you see the light? Now everybody waits because the light is red. That means people have to stop. And when it gets green, we can cross over on the zebras. And he said, but that is what people decided, that red is stop and green is go. So we said, imagine how much we have to listen to what Borei Olam says, what the Kodesh Baruch Hu tells us. And he turned around, this fellow. I keep saying that was Eliyahu Hanavi. I'm telling you, it was Eliyahu Hanavi. He turns around and he looks at me, the father. I turned around and I walked home. I turned around, I did not cross the road, I walked home. I said, I'm not going to eat at home anymore. I need kosher food.
Wow.
So, and my mother was very, very much against it. My mother was very, very much against it, but I refused to eat the meat. I would not eat meat anymore, and I would not eat, there was no chicken, but it was only meat. I would not eat the meat anymore. I would not eat the meat. So she said it was ridiculous, I had to eat meat. I had to grow because I had problems. I always had problems with my stomach. So she went to the kosher butcher and she would buy meat for me. But then she had to buy saucepans also, because I'm not going to eat that. So I asked my mother how, she would cook. I would take the potatoes because I didn't know anything. I mean, I know meat you had to have, But I think that's all of my film, if I remember properly.
Can you relate, as a baby, one of the most amazing miracles? Miriam is a survivor, as you know. But Yaakov, Miriam, if you could relate to Yaakov.
Okay, yes.
Because you'll not believe what you're going to hear.
Yes, they came. I was 3 weeks old when the Nazis came for my parents and for my 2 brothers and me. 3 weeks. My mother had just fed me, if that's the story you want me to tell. Okay, my mother they took me out of the arms for my mother. My mother was in bed, she was feeding me in bed. They took me out of the arms and they threw me out of the window from the 2nd floor. My father was downstairs holding my 2 brothers each in a hand. One was 5 and one was 1.5. He was 2 years perhaps my 2nd brother. No, a year and 10 and 20, yeah, whatever. And 8 months, a year and 8 months. And my father did like that and he caught me. Okay, that is the first, how, perhaps that's why I'm always frightened for heights, but I don't know. That was the first thing. So my mother screamed, of course, and my father had this, here I am. So they let me go. Then when I was 3 months old, 4 months old perhaps, I mean this I heard only from my mother because I don't remember anything. There were 70 mothers and 70 babies in Westerbork, in the concentration camp that is going to either Auschwitz or Sobibor from there. But that was the place. And my mother said and they came in one evening and with little bottles of milk. And they said every baby should have the milk because then the mothers sleep the whole night. They don't have to get up to feed the babies. At night I was the youngest baby. My mother said, no, she's not giving me the milk. And there was another mother who said also no, whose son is a little bit older than me. I met him, I think I told you that. She was also not going to give the milk because she was also breastfeeding. In the morning, 68 babies were gone. Can you imagine the screaming that was there from the mothers? It was poisoned. The milk was poisoned. Can you imagine the screaming from the other mothers? So I was tied to my mother for 2.5 years. Wherever I'm tied, on either on the stomach or on not at the back because then she couldn't see me, but either on this side or on this side or whatever, for 2.5 years, wherever she went, whatever, I was there on her. Mamash.
Did you ever ask your mother why she didn't give you the milk? Why?
Because she didn't want to give me the milk. That's why. And that she told me only that story after my eldest son was born. It was very hot then. My mother came over from Holland. After I gave him birth, my mother came over. He was born in Elul, September. And in Tipat Gelaf, the children, the babies, the clinic, where they weigh the baby every 2 weeks or whatever it is. And they told me then that he had to get some, not only that I should breastfeed, but he also should get some boiled water, cold water, because it was so hot. It was 38, 39 degrees, and they were afraid that the babies did not get enough liquid. And he went out to buy a bottle, and we sterilized it, and we did everything. And I'm ready to give it to my mother. My mother said no. She sprung up and she threw the bottle out of my hands. No bottle, no bottle, no bottle. What happened? What happened? You know, that a reaction like that from no bottle. And I could see, I said, okay. She said, on a spoon. So, on a spoon. So we put it on a spoon and we gave the drops of water to my son. Only a few days later, I said, Mom, would you tell me what happened, a reaction like that? That she jumped up, you know, and no bottle, no bottle. No bottle. And then she told me the story, what happened. You know, that because, you know, what happened with the milk. Okay, well, yes. Now, I don't remember anything except that I have a dream. And I know my mother knew what I was talking about. And she would not tell me what happened. I'm walking with my father. My father is on this side and I'm holding his hand. And I did that the thing with a grandson of mine to see how old I was. You know, because I remember my hand was completely straight when I was holding on to my father. And we are walking slowly, we're walking in a row. We're walking. I don't know where to, nobody is speaking. Not the people in front of us, not the people behind us, not my father not talking to me, we were walking. Comes a man out of a building. On that side, wherever, walks towards us, watches each child, looks at each child that is walking there with parents or with a father, with a mother, looking. He passes us. He does a step back and tries to pick me up.
Yeah.
I turn around and I grabbed my father on his thigh. And I wake up screaming. I don't know what happened. I don't know what he wanted to do. I wake up screaming. Okay, because he woke me then. That is, so when I went to visit and each time, day after day, I don't know what triggered it that I had that dream. Day after day, night after night, I had the same dream. I went to Holland to see my mother and I figured, that's it, I'm going to ask her what happened. She looks at me, she said, child, just let go of it. And she didn't tell me. But I could see from her eyes that she knew what I was talking about. And she would not tell me. So.
Where your family lived during the Shoah?
They were in Westerbork and then they were sent out
Before
in Amsterdam.
Oh, in Amsterdam.
In Amsterdam, yes. I was born in Amsterdam. My father's family came originally from Mannheim, from Germany. They left in Germany because there was a riot and one of my grandfather's brother hit one of those rioters with a stick on the head and he fell and he got killed and whatever. They moved them to Antwerp. My father was born in Antwerp. During the First World War, my father and his father, his mother died, my grandmother died when my father was 6 years old. So they came to Amsterdam because Holland was then neutral and Belgium was in the war, so they came there, and so my father was always...
Your life story is exactly like Felicia Amna, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu saved your life.
Yes, not once, not twice, quite a few times. Quite a few times.
It's happened to the Klal Israel, especially if you have Emunah to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why I'm asking you that question.
I just want to tell you, I was so spoiled at home, and by my father and by my mother. I know exactly, I was Joseph, who was always right. You know, by his father. Yaakov always said that Joseph was right, and he got always, that was me. And I know my brothers, my two older brothers, they hated me. They hated me. And I can exactly feel what the brothers felt there, or what Joseph felt. And literally, I mean, I don't think I said that on the film because it's not very nice to my brothers, that they put me over and they pressed me down. I did mention that. Okay, they threw me over the wall. I broke then my two arms at the same time because I held like that so that I wouldn't get my face against the wall. How they took me out, I don't know. They said not my eldest brother, the other brother went down to help me getting out of the thing because there was no street out where there was like, I was always right. So I remember telling my husband, you know, it's not going to happen. Everybody gets exactly the same. Everybody gets the same attention, the same, and nothing that, it's really, what can you do? Parents make mistakes but also, you know, there was a Rav in Amsterdam, Rav Drukas, he's not alive anymore, it's he came every Sunday morning at 11:45, he would ring the bell and ask, my mother would open the door and he would ask if he could take my brothers, just to learn a little bit of Yiddishkeit. And my mother would say, no, thank you, no, and she would close the door. The next week he would ring the bell and my mother would say, no, you want to come in for a drink, you can come in for a drink. I'm not giving my sons. She would close the door again and again and again and again. One Sunday, either he was late or he came early. He wasn't there at 11:45. He was all before 25 to 12 or 5 minutes past 12, whatever time. My father opened the door. And he said, Mr. Rieheimer, can I take your sons? I'll bring them back in an hour. After an hour there was something for little boys and I'll take them back. So my father said, I'll get them back in an hour. He said, yes, I'll bring them back. I said, take them. You know, just get them out of the house. Yeah.
Yeah.
It took my mother a long time to get back to her emunah. And that was only because I didn't want to eat anymore at home. Then we got married. My husband is from Britain. And I was religious then already. I mean, and my father was not alive. My father just 60 years ago that he passed away last month. So my father was very much against Israel. He didn't want me to come. I had to make a very big decision. I wanted to become a judge, not a lawyer, a judge. And my father looked at me and he said, okay, we will pay for your studies, but you have to promise me that you're not going to Israel. And I looked at him, I turned around, I said thank you, and I walked away. And I came to Israel. I came to Israel after he had passed away. That I waited a year out and then I came to Israel.
Did he not want you to come because you'd be leaving the family?
He didn't want me to come. He said the price was too high. The price was too high to leave the family. You know, there was not one Jewish family that was complete in Holland, in Amsterdam. We were the exception. That my father, my mother, my two brothers and me came out.
It's the exception.
That's completely exception, because this one had only a friend of mine had only a grandmother. She lived with her grandmother, and there was nobody else. I didn't know what a grandmother was or a grandfather, nothing, clue. So it's stories.
Yeah.
In any case, I want to tell you about this other boy who also the mother refused to give the milk.
Oh.
My mother passed away 25 years ago. It must have been she was dead already, so it's 24 years ago or 26 years ago, whatever. My mother was not alive anymore. I get a phone call on an evening, and they said there is a symposium in Tel Aviv for child survivors. And they got the list from Yad Vashem, and of course my name is on there. And if I'm interested in coming, I didn't fill out the form. They saw that I did not register to get there. I said, no, I'm not coming. Why aren't you coming? I said, I get 2 weeks before I have migraine, till 2 weeks afterwards I have migraine. My son doesn't want me to come. She said, okay, tell me a story. This lady tells me over the phone. I tell her the story from the milk. Quiet on the other side of the telephone. I said, are you still there? She said, yes. I said, don't tell me that this little boy is your husband. You know, you never know how things turn out. She said, no, but last night I phoned somebody in one of the kibbutzim or mushavim in the north of the country, in the Galil, and he said he wasn't going to come. He was also from Amsterdam, and he's not going to come. He's not interested, he doesn't want to know anything about it. He has his life here in Israel, doesn't want to do anything. So she asked him, okay, I can understand, tell me a story. He told the story from the milk to this lady over the phone. I mean, there are only 2 people in the story. Nobody knows that story, because who can tell it?
Yeah.
There's nobody there to tell it except him and me. You know it?
Right.
So she said to me, so I said, give me his telephone number, I'll phone him. That I'm very pleased that, you know, sometimes during the years, what happened to this boy? Did he survive? What happened to his mother? His father, they murdered his father in front of his wife, and he was a baby in the pram. They shot his father because he walked on the pavement and not in the gutter. So they shot him in Amsterdam. Okay, that was really to murder him. So she phoned up the next day. She phoned this fellow, and he said, okay. So we met in Tel Aviv, as it happened. So it's that was.
It's him.
It was him. He knew. He knew the same story. He told the same story that his mother told him, as my mother told me.
That's why it's very important to share the story. Right?
Yes.
To know.
He didn't stay though for the symposium. He went straight away back after we met. He went straight away back to the kibbutz or Moshav. He didn't want to stay there.
So
I invited him to
amazing.
come for Shabbat. You know, he and his wife, it is too religious. No. Okay. We say that yet.
Nice.
But now,
Touching story.
you know, if I see my husband, he came on his own 65 years ago to Israel. Also, he had no family here, but he went straight in the army, and they gave him a kibbutz. Kibbutz Ein Tzurim, where he go for Shabbatot and Chagim. When I came to Israel, I didn't have anybody. Nobody. And if you turn around and you see the picture on the wall, that's part of the family. If you turn around on the wall there.
Oh, you created a new generation of Clarissa.
Yeah, well, that's us with the children, the grandchildren, and the great-grandchildren. And it's not up to date. It's not up to date.
Yes, yeah.
There are a couple of them that it will never be up to date, because the grandchildren are getting married, and then we have the great-grandchildren. That's Am Yisrael. It's
yeah. What a lovely story.
So I'd like to mention Yaakov was invited. Yaakov, you could mention with the German government that they invited.
Last year I was, because I closed with the ambassador of Germany for Indonesia, they invited me.
That's because of your work? Or
because of the work of the museum.
Because of the museum, okay.
Like, as you know, like German government have a very deep feel guilty for Shoah.
They should.
So they start to become closer with anyone who involved in the Shoah. But in Indonesia, it's almost difficult. They got the issue about the Shoah, right? So when I invite them to attend the Museum of the Holocaust, they're very I don't say they're happy in another things, but they're happy that they can involve about the Holocaust education there. So they invite me to come last year with another Jewish participant from other country to see the Jewish life in Germany. So how they restore the synagogue, how they bring the Jews back.
How many people, how many Jews? There are a lot of Israelis in Germany.
Yeah.
Right now. Also a lot of Arabs.
Right. So it's
But I think you do wonderful work. It's
amazing to see. And then I extend my trip to Poland to visit Auschwitz. I go by myself. I take train from Berlin to Auschwitz.
Oh wow!
But in Berlin, you met with the Speaker of the Parliament, the Bundestag.
We invite by the Foreign Affairs and also for the Parliament. We go to the Bundestag, the place that there's a history for during the Third Reich at the time.
Yeah.
It's so touching also to see. But I want to share with you my experience in 2018 when I went to Frankfurt. I'm a professional photographer, so I have a job one time in Frankfurt in 2018. I went with my client. It was Pesach, so I was invited by the Chabad of Frankfurt to do the Seder there, Laila Seder. And during all Seder, I feel very touching, like we really feel like we really become a free people. It's like in the land when just few years ago there is a lunatic crazy guy who want to destroy all of us, all people. But
as they say, that's in every generation.
Exactly.
They get up to murder us and try to wipe us off the.
Then it's very touching to have a Seder in Germany, So I mean, like, and then when I visit the camp, it's bring like a very horror, to see the place when I lost, my family was get lost, and almost.
Where was your grandmother's family from?
From the Sabenagen. The surname is Van Burgen.
What was the name?
Van Burgen.
Van Burgen.
Yeah. So the Hebrew surname was Begin, and then they changed it to Van Burgen. So there is another Van Burgen, but it's not Jewish, of course. And it's so amazing. I mean, to see how we can survive, because I can feel the pain, the suffer when you just walk around to see the executing place. That on the time nobody was thinking that we will survive. Everybody will think we will finish, but now we survive. I'm glad now we have a state of Israel who will protect all Jews. In the shore we don't have someone who protect us, protect our people now. There is a state who want to protect the Jews. I hope now nobody Jews will left behind in everywhere. But I was also thinking about after 7 October there's another terror for the Jews in Israel and outside Israel. Because anti-Semitism
so much hate.
The hate is unbelievable, I tell you. To the people who deny the Holocaust, because they thought Holocaust is 78 years ago. But when they deny 7 October, it just happened a few months ago. It's crazy to see how our enemies. So it's the same clear message that we should never forget, We should never again. And I promised to when I met Mr. President Herzog a few days ago, also when I visited the Kafara Azar, I said I will make a special memorial for 7 October in the synagogue. So there is, after the Holocaust Museum, there is a 2 memorial, one for Holocaust, one for 7 October.
It was unbelievable.
And I promised to bring all people to come to do the ceremony every
How many Jews are in Indonesia?
It's less than 100 now for the locals. Many Israeli in Bali, or expat Jews, but for local it's less than 100. Many elderly Jews have passed away and the family is not Jewish anymore.
Yeah.
So we face a very serious problem now. But
How do you manage with food?
I'm a shochet as well, but only for chicken. Yeah, so we only have a few duck off, you know. So yeah, like my great grand uncle, who used to be the assistant rabbi in the Jewish community of Dordrecht, Mr. Hartog van Begen, Zichron Livracha. He was like a rabbi, he was a Hassan, he was a shochet, he was a mohel, Hebrew teacher in the Dordrecht. That's what I'm following in Indonesia.
Wow.
Except for mohel. I'm not doing the Brit Milah yet for kids, but yeah. Even
It's amazing how the Jewish blood goes, right? There is always somebody who will come back.
Yeah. In my Chabad friend always said like Gilgul Neshama. There is a time when the Jews cannot make mitzvah, and then all the children can see that will have that desire to come back to Judaism, come closer. That's what I feel. And they said to me, Yaakov, you have a Gilgul Neshama. You do it in Indonesia. Indo is Indonesia. Nes is miracle. Ya is Hashem. So Indonesia is under miracle of Hashem by you. That's what my friend told me. So Besrat Hashem, I will try.
Between all these Arabs, sorry, the Muslims. It's
But that's why my mission, I involve in interfaith to gathering them, to explain them. They never saw Jews before for many years.
They think you have horns.
Yeah. Once I invite to them come to the synagogue to break the fasting together on Ramadan. They saw the Torah, and they said we are same. We came from same. I see. You see, people like to hate whatever they didn't know. So it's our duty to show to introduce to people, and then once they know, we will have a good brotherhood.
The problem with the Muslims is they don't believe. They don't believe that things really happened.
Yes.
They don't believe that. They keep saying there was years ago a terrorist attack in Beit Litz. That's in the middle of the country. Yeah. They said then Yitzhak Rabin was still alive. They claimed that we put the bombs down. And because there was a trampiada for the soldiers, and then there was the second. So the ambulances came, and then there was the second bomb. It was just like.
It's here today again. They're saying that
it's called denial.
Denial, of course.
Everywhere in Jakarta, Bali bomb, in even not only 7 October, 9/11 in America, for whatever. The denial always happens, so yeah.
They're never to blame.
I know, that's why we will have, myself, I have a hard job that I should work in Indonesia to make everything real. And I hope my mission to come now with the delegation of Indonesia, that they're ready back to Indonesia. We hope this Abraham Accord can bring Indonesia and Israel to become closer, and all people in Indonesia will know exactly what Israel and what Israel face it now. That's why I try to.
You know, I worked in the Hebrew University in the library, in the main library, and one day I see somebody coming in with a black hat and a long black coat. Now I see them all the time, but the face of his color was darker than your face. So he comes up and he spoke in English, and there was nobody English speakers, so he came up to me and we started talking. So he tells me he's from Korea, and I said, you know, and he had this tzitzis. I said, what are you doing in Korea? What happened? So he said they have to learn there the Elders of Zion, you know, that anti-Semitic book. And they figured, but they saw it in a positive light. Not that they saw it, if the Jews can do it, then we can do it better. So we have to learn from the Jews. So they gave that book as an example how you can get forward and be the best of the best.
I hear about that, but I tell you the funny thing. What they learn, actually, not that book. They learn Talmud.
They learn Talmud, yes, because
they print Talmud in Korean. Because they want to know why Jews is smart, and they try to copy it.
He said he was the only Jew in Korea. He was now I'm already more than 20 years on pension, and that was long before. They lived 20 years at least before that. So let's call it 40 years, 35, 40 years. You know, and here he was fighting, and he said, I'll stay in Korea, I'm not coming on Aliyah, I'll stay in Korea, and I'll show them what we can do, we as Jews, you know. But they saw it as something positive. And that was the Talmud the same, they're trying to understand the people, you know, wow, it's very nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you too. I learned so many things now, and
we all have our story, right?
Yeah, I hope all the story will become eternal, and all the memory from our family, including 6 million Jews, will always, their memory will become blessing.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you both.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank
you. Yes. You want to be on the
I just want to thank you, and Miriam.
Thank you very,
you both
very
are
much.
extraordinary people, and I'm so glad that we made this meeting. And Miriam, I must mention, the video that I made with you is in Yaakov's museum.
Oh, really?
I was in Jakarta, it was about a year and a half ago. I gave Yaakov like the videos, and you play them.
Yes.
You have a TV
My son
screen.
tried to find it, and he couldn't find it. He said there were so many of the films that you make.
Send you. But that your because it is extraordinary. The Nissim, the miracles, how you survive.
The miracles, yes.
It is, and the miracle of Yaakov, we having two.
Really.
You both are extraordinary, and I'm so glad that you made this meeting. And Yaakov's going back we're going back soon.
Yeah, on Wednesday.
We're going back on Wednesday.
It's so special that we
But this must be very, very difficult to be one of the very few, but perhaps that makes you stand up straight. You know, it's.
Thank you. I want you to. Wish you can daven, so I can bring my son for my mitzvah here on this Hanukkah.
Very nice.
I hope he will become the first Indonesian Jewish boy who ever bar mitzvah here.
We call the television.
Bezrat Hashem.
We call the television. Wow.
Thank you so much for
thank you.
doing
Perhaps I want to make video for the bar mitzvah.
With the greatest of pleasure.
Very nice,
Yeah.
very nice.
But thank you both.
You should have the strength to carry on with what you started doing, and it's, and take food back from here, you know.
Yeah.
Little packages, a few suitcases
every day
that the kids don't have.
I eat meat here because I don't have the kosher meat in Indonesia.
Well, I would invite you to come and sit with us one day. But if you're going back on Wednesday or Tuesday, I'm not here. On Tuesday and tomorrow I come.
Yeah.
Miriam, thank you so much. And Yaakov, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
Welcome. Very nice.